My name's Joey, and this is Maria, my colleague. It's a pleasure to share the journey we've been on over the past year and a half with you today, and we're also going to make space for some questions afterwards, because we find quite often the most interesting things come out when we start talking to people about how we do things and give people the opportunity to talk about it. But over to Maria for some context.
So we refer to our team as Media Services Team. The main responsibility of this team is to transcode online audio and video content and provide it in the right format via the distribution and rights management system. The two systems responsible for audio and video content transcoding are referred to as Audio Factory and Video Factory, and they provide live streaming and on-demand content to products like BBC 1, 2, 3 and 4 and BBC Sport and the very well known in the UK BBC iPlayer. For those of you who haven't come across the iPlayer, it's a web-based player where you can watch all BBC content, be it live streaming or on demand, and access it via the internet. But it's only available within the UK. So we're going to tell you a little bit more about the iPlayer.
So broadcasting is at the heart of what we at the BBC, as many of you might know. And as Maria said, iPlayer is an extension of that. So how this originally developed was to take scheduled broadcast TV and provide it online to people to watch later, what we refer to as catch-up TV. Since then, the product's grown, and apart from providing catch-up TV, we also provide videos and programs made specifically for online usage, and we've moved one of our main channels, BBC 3, over to iPlayer. So this channel is no longer available on terrestrial TV, it's only available on online. Over 30% of the UK population watch iPlayer. Bake Off is one of the big brand names in the UK, and as you can imagine, with 3 billion program requests a year, we need to make sure that we build scalable platform solutions and that we have equally robust ways of managing the delivery of those solutions, so there's a very, very small margin of error in what we do. It's also one of the top brands in the UK. So apart from building scalable solutions, we need to make sure we deliver predictably, but with quality. And we need to be able to adapt and change at speed when we need to. With over 3,000 hours of television content, we also, apart from developing new features, have an operations team which we manage, and they make sure that 24/7 that they can react if anything goes wrong. So apart from all this complexity, we also deliver our content to multiple devices, as you can see. An example of new features we've recently rolled out is the ability to restart live TV and also to be able to download programs via apps and various other means on your TV to watch later.
Audio and Video Factory support 31 video channels and 94 audio channels. These figures are the hours of video and audio transcoding we did in the month of April 2016. So on average, we transcode over 30,000 hours of media every week. The number of requests made to our media distribution system in April was slightly over 800 million, which is roughly 12 times the population of the UK. However, this wasn't our busiest time. Summers are usually very eventful, and last summer was no exception. In addition to the usual events like Wimbledon, Glastonbury Music Festival and BBC Proms, we also witnessed 2 major global scale events, Rio 2016 and European Cup 2016. And our busiest day was England versus Wales match. On that day, the number of concurrent online viewers reached 2.4 million. This figure is close enough to be compared with the traditional TV broadcasting. Their number for the same match was 9 million viewers. And this number of viewers amounted to 2.4 terabits of peak throughput rate per second. And whilst football fans were enjoying the match, our eyes were drawn to graphs peaking at heights we haven't seen before. And that month, the number of requests to the media distribution system reached almost 1.5 billion. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of the scale of the operation we have to deal with on a daily basis. And now to the main point of our presentation.
So we'd now like to take you back a year and a half ago when Maria and I joined the team. We joined the media services team from other teams within the BBC, but the first number of weeks for us were just spent observing and also getting to grip with all the new technical jargon. We manage multiple work streams and deliveries, and at any given time, to give you an idea of scale, we would manage the delivery of 3 to 4 large-scale strategic projects, which would last between 1 and 4 years each. We also have up to 14 medium-sized projects running concurrently with the strategic projects, and then multiple smaller deliveries.
So media services is quite a large team, and when me and Joy joined it, it had about 60 people. The team was split in 5 development teams. And it had its own operations team and a testing team. It also had 2 video and 1 audio specialists, 2 technical architects who, together with the engineering manager, are responsible for looking after the high-level architecture of the video and audio factory systems. As you will see later in the talk, engineering manager was quite a central role in the team. We also had 3 product managers, each responsible for their own area of the product: audio, video, and distribution rights. And a delivery manager and 2 project managers. Our first introduction to the team was through the usual Agile meetings. So every day at 10 a.m., the teams would meet and have their own daily stand-up. These stand-ups are led by technical team leads, and project managers wouldn't normally attend them. Then at 10:15, team leads would join the team management to give an update on what they're working on today and what blockers they have. Then later, every other day, at 10:30, there would be a dependency stand-up where we would talk about how teams are interdependent on each other and what external dependencies and deadlines we have. Then we would also need to update head of media services. So it used to be a weekly meeting, usually an hour long, where we would report on the progress of every project and any blockers. And triage session also was a weekly session where we would look at all new work coming into the team and assign it to a development team. This diagram shows the flow of work in the team. So I'll start from this side. Each product manager had their own roadmap that contained future plans for their products. They would each commit individually to what they're delivering, what features they're delivering to their stakeholders. They would then communicate what they've committed to at dependency stand-up to the engineering manager and the rest of the team. These items would then be triaged and compete with the rest of work coming into the team for a place in a backlog. And each team used to have a backlog, and to give you an idea, it's a list of over 50 items waiting for their turn to be picked up and go into development. Teams used Kanban principle to run their development. So when something is completed, they would pull in a new task. And I also wanted to mention that the teams used BDD principles and test-driven development. So developers would develop their cucumber tests before they start working on any feature, and test team would start at the same time to develop automated test suite. So by the time the feature is delivered to production, we will have a suite of regression tests. Yep.
So the team that we joined were considered a mature Agile team, therefore prearrange what's next. They've been using Agile and various Agile ceremonies for all their planning. They used the Agile methodology. They talked about product managers, definition of done. They were one of the first teams at the BBC to fully adopt continuous integration. We release up to 100 times a week. Also, just to refer to previous presentations that we heard today, they had been following and still continue to following good engineering principles, so pair programming, code review, refactoring code regularly. So why did we think we could improve on what they were doing? So let's review the ceremonies as Maria described it to you. So first of all, when we attended the daily Scrum of Scrums, there was no board for us. So what happened is that we listened to updates, but it was very difficult to actually match the updates that we got to these roadmaps that Maria referred to and understand how these roadmaps that product managers were individually committing to would be achieved. Then in terms of the dependency stand-up, we were met with a board full of stickies. And we should have actually taken a photo. We realized when we did the presentation we should have taken a photo. Although there were many stickies and people were giving updates on many things, it was difficult to link that to the tasks that the developers were talking about. So in short, it was really difficult to understand how the roadmaps that were aspirational would actually be delivered in one go. So if we look at the roadmap, so we've got a malfunction of notes. If you look at the roadmap, the first thing that struck us that we were dealing with a shared resource pool, but the product managers had individual roadmaps. So that's the first thing that probably struck most of you when you looked at that. Secondly, on the next level, these people had already committed to various stakeholders to deliver a feature. But then it goes to triage, and it competes with other issues coming in. So the already committed items now go through a second level of triage, and then they get put on the team backlogs, which mean the team leads then have to prioritize a third level. So what we have is we have separation on all three levels, and there's no coherent view from here right through to what gets delivered and pushed out on the other side. Apart from this, we lost 40% of our developer resource. And interestingly enough, the engineering manager that was really key across all the different flows, who was the main person who made decisions right through all the different stand-ups, also left. But as we all know, with change comes opportunity.
So it was a very challenging situation to be in, and of course we couldn't stop delivering software. So in our minds we had the checklist of actions we wanted to take, which we thought would help us deliver predictably with quality and reduced waste. However, we had to take people's capacity to change into account and take a small step at a time. So we're going to take you through this checklist. So first of all, we wanted to see. We've identified the information we wanted to visualize at every level: development, project, roadmap. And we've started with the roadmap. We've made sure that a joint roadmap was agreed by all three product managers, and that joint priorities were selected. So, and also we've constrained the roadmap by team's capacity, so only a limited number of items could go on the roadmap. So this is a snapshot of it, and it's located in a very visible place in our office, on a big wall that we walk past every day to and from our stand-ups. So it serves as a reminder of our joint priorities and also as a high-level plan informing development teams of what's about to come. The very large items on the roadmap are split into milestones. We define a clear MVP for each of these items and further milestones, and they're displayed on a separate board like this. So at the top here, we have a very high level plan outlining all milestones, and underneath we have a detailed view of the milestone currently in progress. And finally, we've added a board where we showed what each team is busy with, so we can have a view of what's going on. And the teams already had their virtual boards, Scrum boards in Jira. However, they had the very low level technical details in each task, and it was quite hard to link it to a deliverable. So what we did, we grouped these smaller tasks into bigger epics and link them to deliverables, and this is what we display on this board. So we call this an epic board. So to summarize, we've linked and visualized every level, and we can follow through every deliverable from the roadmap to the development team and vice versa. We've also encouraged ops team and test teams to have their stand-ups in the mornings as well. We've changed other Agile meetings slightly too, so we try to make sure that this meeting is no longer than 15 minutes. We've replaced dependency stand-ups with milestone stand-ups. So on every day of the week we talk about one specific project. And we can see dependencies very easily in relation to these projects. Our triage sessions reduced from 1 hour to 30 minutes because the whole team is clear on what are our priorities and what is team's capacity. And then we no longer have a separate meeting just to update the head of the media services, because we've invited him to the stand-ups so he can get his updates there.
So the next action we identified was that of ownership. We wanted to make sure that the right role was focusing on the right aspect at every single step of the way. So if we look at the new workflow representation, first of all, we wanted to make sure that backlogs are owned by product managers. You might remember in the previous slide we showed you the way they worked, where all the work, huge aspirations this side, and all the work got pushed to the developers. So the poor developers ended up owning a backlog, which seems the right way to go about doing it. We wanted to make sure that the product managers owned what they were committing against, and that could free the developers to just find the right solutions and develop the product. So they have their own individual backlogs still, so in the form of user stories. Then what they do is they put it in a shared joint roadmap. So we have one view now of what our entire team and the joint resource pool is committing to for a particular period. We use the terminology for ice, water, steam in our roadmaps. So the first 3 months we refer to as ice. So we committed to deliver everything that we put on in the next 3 months. Then we have water, because we know things are fluid, technology might change, we need to adapt, so we know that the next 3 months might change. And then 6 months on is steam. So we do put things in there, and the product managers have aspirations of what they like to do, but we anticipate that there will be change. Then that roadmap gets translated into what we call a delivery plan with top 10 priorities. And this we make sure is really visible, as Maria said. So from the developer working in a development team to the head of media services know exactly what the top 10 priorities are for any given 6-month period. So there's no more continuous talking about priorities through all the different areas when we saw the separation between committing roadmap then talking at triage again about whether we should be doing something, and then talking at the backlog stage about what we should pick up. Once, as Maria said, then the extra large items, we see MVP. Once again, these things change, but what we know is we identify what the next milestone would be, so what the minimum value deliverable is for us, and we track our progress against that. These things do change and fluctuate, but we update it so that everybody can see what's going on. And then next, the development teams, they manage those tasks and they own them. They have to take full responsibility for the estimation that they've given us. And our estimation goes in various phases as per Agile. So we start off with a really very high level. We think it's small, medium, large. They iterate, they look at the tickets, and once they feel that they're comfortable, then we have the daily stand-ups. So it's not that they tell us a task will be 5 days. We never ask for that particular level, but we have a feel for the size of the task, and we update accordingly, and they've owned that. So once we defined ownership, we thought it was worth just talking about roles again. Although, as we said, they were using Agile terminology, but we thought with time it became unclear exactly what the product manager was doing or what the engineering manager was doing. So what we articulated was that the product manager is solely responsible for making decisions around product, is present at all stand-ups, and can make a decision at any given time with obviously the input from technical architects or anybody else to make a radical change if they feel that's needed. Secondly, the team leads are responsible for delivery of the committed items once their capacity is taken into account. And the delivery team, that's us, are responsible for making sure that we deliver what we've committed to. And as Maria said, we generally try to deliver over 90% of what we plan, so from delivery plan to actual delivery.
The next action was tracking, because without tracking, it's hard to achieve success. And this is the area where we have our daily stand-ups. As you can see, all these boards that we talked about are in the same area. So when you're changing something on one level, you're forced to look at the lower level or the level above and see what impact your change will have. So you're forced to see the full picture. And our aim was to make tracking as lightweight as possible. And although we do have as many physical boards as we have, it takes very little time to update them because we do it as we go. During the stand-ups, we move the tickets and we reflect the changes as we go. And when we need to make a decision or reprioritize, the information that we need is right there in front of us on all levels. So the milestone board in particular is the product of the tracking action, because there are projects where the entire team is involved, as in all 3 development teams, and then this board doesn't really give us a good view of how we are tracking against a certain deadline, because, for example, with summer events, it is something that we cannot move, and no matter how agile we want to be, we can't move Olympics. So we have to adhere to some deadlines. So in this view, we would track against a certain date and we would see how we're progressing overall as a team and whether we're meeting our targets. Right?
And as Maria said, we have a lot of live events that can't move. We have radio pop-up stations that need to launch at a particular day. We have the Olympics, Wimbledon. But that doesn't mean we're not agile. So we know one thing, it has to happen. But what we do is we discuss repeatedly, looking at these boards, of the best way to achieve it and redefine continually what that MVP is, what it is that we need to deliver. So the next thing we wanted to look at is engagement. We wanted to engage at the right level, but with minimal waste. we hate meetings. We do not want to have developers sit in meetings. We want them to code. We want them to develop. We want product managers to product manage. We don't sit in sprint planning for a whole day. So what we try to do is with these boards, within 15 minutes, we review where we are and we make changes. And that really helps us. The other thing is that we wanted to make it all accessible and open. We want developers to engage, and it was when we joined the team, the developers didn't engage in any of the artifacts around planning. You know, they just went and did their thing, or did what the team lead told them to do. It was beautiful when we saw the first developer walk to the board after we did it. You know, we were both pointing at each other. They actually use the boards, which is great. And they come over to us and say, okay, I finished this task, what's the next task that you want us to pick up? It's about taking things out of one individual person's head, be that person an engineering manager, delivery manager, project manager, scrum master, and making it open, but allowing people to deliver products, which is the core of what we do.
And finally, so we believe that all the actions we've just talked about helped us deliver within the right time frame by selecting most important items first and being responsive to changing priorities. Today, we deliver over 90% of items we commit to within the predicted time frame. However, the main goal has always been and remains delivering value to the audiences and building the right software. We're sorted for now.
So we think we've come a long way in improving the agility of the team and improving the communication of the team. But it is still a day-to-day job to keep it at this level, to remind new people why we do things. If a developer comes and says, why do we need a board? We've got everything in Jira, to explain to them why we do things the way we do it. So many years ago, a creative director of an ad agency told me to give them the freedom of a tight brief. And that's in essence what we've tried to do. We try to provide a very lightweight framework that helps our developers to innovate and our product managers to innovate. A framework that helps them develop the right product at the right time.
And finally, we would like once again to take the opportunity to thank the organizers and the sponsors of the conference for inviting us to speak. And it's been a pleasure sharing our experience with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.